Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel. This is our Get to Know program, and I'm DP Lyle, and I'm here with my co-host and cohort in crime.
Kathleen Antrim. And I'm the one who is assigned to tell you all to please, please, please like this video, if you like it, of course, and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our interviews and shows that we will have coming up. And today we are here with the incredible, extraordinary Mr. Stephen James. He is a critically acclaimed and best-selling author in every way, shape, and form. He teaches writing all over the world, literally was just in India. I've been in Dubai with him before. And welcome to the show, Stephen. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's great to see what you guys are doing.
Oh, we're getting into trouble, and now we're dragging you into it.
Yeah, dragging you into it, yes.
So I want to talk to you about growing up. So when I know.
Now we're not going to force you to grow up. We just want to know how you didn't grow up.
Yeah, I know exactly. Right.
So I have a theory because so many authors that I talk to, it seems like their childhoods, not all of them, but many, it seems like their childhoods were often instrumental in them becoming a writer. So I want to know, what kind of a kid were you? Were you shy? Did you grow up in books? I mean, what did you do, as a child, and where did you grow up?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Wisconsin. Interestingly enough, I was the kid who would daydream all the time and sit in class and look out the window. And I was thinking of dragons rushing through the neighborhood and all that kind of thing. And then my uncle actually was a storyteller. And whenever we would get together for like the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, or whatever, he'd kind of get this look in his eye and he would take my siblings and myself. He'd say, I'm going to tell you a story. He'd take us into the corner of the living room, and it's like we were transported. We were no longer in the living room. We were swashbuckling with pirates on the high seas, or staring down a grizzly bear flying out over on a flying carpet over the desert, but we were transported to a new world. And so I just fell in love with stories, and never imagined I'd be a writer, but I just love to tell stories and read stories, listen to stories. And then eventually, when I was in high school, I just kind of felt like I really want to, pursue that aspect of my life. I didn't know what it would look like, but so I started working at this summer camp and telling the kids stories. And so I told these kids all the stories my uncle used to tell me because I was trying to find a way to get them to calm down at night from jumping off the bunks and everything. And so I said, I'm going to tell you a story. And so they'd kind of sit down and so I'm going to tell you a story. So I told them my uncle's stories and I put them to sleep. I mean, I was good. Within 5 minutes, they were all asleep. I was like, man, I am good. And then I thought, wait a minute. No, they're falling asleep. Maybe that's not so good. So, but one night, one of the kids stayed awake and he goes, do you know any more stories? And I'd used up all my uncle's stories at that point. And I was like, let me get back to you on that. So next day I'm like calling my uncle on the phone, like, what am I supposed to do? I used up all your stories. He's like, now it's time for you to take the baton. So I had to make up my own story and I did. And then that was kind of, well, that's a while ago now. That's been a minute, but that was kind of the first venture into the world of making up my own stories and telling them. And it was at camp to calm the kids down and bore them to sleep at night.
So when did you decide to actually try your hand at writing professionally?
Well, I started to write for magazines mainly back in the 90s. And then I wrote some nonfiction books and articles and so on. And then one day I was reading, I think this had to be about 2004. I was reading a novel that everyone was talking about. And I got to the end of it and I was so angry because it was so predictable. I threw it against the wall. I literally threw it against the wall. And I thought to myself, if that's the best that's out there, I can do better than that. And then I hear this voice inside me say, oh yeah, prove it. And I was like, crap, I got to prove it. So I was like, crap. Now, so anyway, so I ended up working on my first novel, The Pawn, at that time. And that came out, I guess, in maybe 2006 or so. And since then, I've done 18 novels and a number of other books over the years. But I'd say it was interesting because what drove me to actually write my stories was raging against mediocrity. Like I
Mm.
read this story that I thought was mediocre and that just really was. So in my heart of hearts, I was like, we need to be telling better stories. And so anyway, I don't know that mine was better than that one that I read, but that's kind of been my quest. And so I actually have this sign up here. You can see my office, but I actually have a sign up that says Rage Against Mediocrity and another sign that says why not be brilliant. So those are the two things to motivate me whenever I sit down. It's like, you know what? Someone's going to be brilliant. Why not me?
Mhm.
And
Now
someone's going
I
to be
love that.
you actually have a degree in storytelling. Tell
Yeah,
us about that and how
interestingly.
that came about and what it actually is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I after I was in college, I just got interested in stories and storytelling. I heard about this master's degree program in storytelling in Tennessee. Now I was living up, like I mentioned, in Wisconsin, so I was like, that's fascinating. I wonder what that's about. So turns out I moved down to Tennessee and went to school at East Tennessee State University, and it was the only college in the world that offered a master's degree in storytelling at the time when I went here. So there was about maybe 60 people in the world who had the degree, and I was like, that sounds so cool. Like I want to do that. So in a lot of it was focused on oral storytelling, oral tradition. Um, but I did a lot of independent study on writing and combining that with told stories. So really my question that I addressed with my thesis was, it's called Fictionalizing Truth, Crafting Personal Experience Stories. So my question was, how much can you change a story and still claim it's true? So like when you tell a story to your friends, like how much can you change it and then yet still claim that's true. So it was pretty fun. And so I ventured into that world and I've loved to tell stories over the years. I've been able, as you mentioned, I've been honored to be able to tell stories and teach writing all over the world over the last, 25, 30 years. And I guess, one of the things that I really, I don't know, I just really feel like storytelling, whether you write a story or tell a story, it is so much of bringing yourself to the story. Like I really feel like it isn't just about writing words or telling words. It's about bringing who you are to the page or to the stage or whatever, and allowing your voice to be unique, distinctive, different. And so it takes a while sometimes to find your voice and to find sort of who you are. But I think that the best storytellers have found a unique way of telling stories, and I kind of I try to help other people, other writers find their own voice as well.
Well, essentially, I grew up in the South, and so
Oh yeah.
I always funnily say that if you grow up in the South and you can't tell a story, they won't feed you. And there's some truth to that. And I grew up with storytellers, all my family, my uncles, aunts, everybody could spin a yarn around the dinner table or sitting in the living room, in a rocking chair or whatever. I just grew up with story. And so when I decided I wanted to write, I realized I was walking into a different den. This was a different animal.
It
And
is
so
true. Yeah.
did you find that you started with these stories with the oral tradition and all that, and then when you sat down to actually put black and white, ink to paper, did you find that an awakening, a difficult, a mind-boggling situation? How did you approach that?
I mean, that's super interesting because when I have an idea for a story, I kind of have to decide at the start if it's going to be a told story or a written story. So I might have this idea, like let's say a memory of an event that occurred, and so I might say, okay, that was an interesting event. Now what am I going to do with it? Like, am I going to write it down, say as a personal story that's a true story, or am I going to tell it? And if in truth, it's like most of the stories that I tell whenever I speak at events or do keynote addresses and things like that have never been written down. Or if they've been written down, it's only after I've told them for a while. And so, yes, they are very different. The way that we approach stories, and a lot of the stories that I've written, I just don't remember as well to tell. So it's just very. I think that it's because when you tell a story orally, you embody it, and it's more than just words. It's pauses. It's facial expressions and gestures and all of that. And to translate that onto the page, it's not just transposing it, it's actually a different kind of a different language. So it's a good question.
Do
Yeah.
you find storytelling more
Yeah.
visceral, more emotional, more personal?
I love one of the things I love about storytelling really is just seeing the reaction of people.
Right.
Like when I'm writing a novel, and you guys both know this, we're sitting alone
Right.
for hours, sometimes for months, in your basement or wherever you write. And you're just like, I hope people like this. Like I hope somebody reads this. I hope they enjoy it. But when you're actually telling stories, you can see people and they nod or they smile, they laugh, or they look at you curiously, and so that feedback for me is very helpful and kind of and I enjoy that. So like I never want to give up one or the other. I wouldn't want to give up telling stories completely because I would kind of go crazy in my basement. But I would never want to give that up either because it's an important part of who I am. And so I love the variety of actually getting
Right.
out on the road, teaching, writing, and teaching storytelling and telling stories, and then retreating back here and be like, okay, put my fingers to the keyboard and we'll go at it.
But don't you find teaching when you go to a conference, when you're giving these talks or a panel or whatever, that's like storytelling, really?
Yeah.
You're telling a
Yeah.
story to these people.
I think it is for me.
Yeah.
And so just because of my love of story, when I teach, it isn't so much just a lecture, it's more of a performance. I mean,
Exactly.
in a certain sense, you
Exactly.
both know that. You're both great teachers. So when you get up in front of a group, it's like you're not just there to feed them information, but you try to, entertain them if you can. And so yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a little bit of acting that goes with that. I mean,
Yes.
not acting in that you're not telling the truth. It's just that, like you said, to be entertaining,
Yeah.
to just whether it's entertaining or just to keep people's attention, to not be, very dry and boring.
Well, if you look back through college, the teachers you remember the most weren't necessarily the smartest, the most factually oriented. In fact, they weren't those. They were the people who brought whatever they were teaching to life, and you
Yeah.
could sit there and feel it and say, "Oh yeah, I get this now." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. You're right.
So inquiring minds want to know how much can you embellish a true story in small?
Oh, really? You're wondering.
Yes, yes.
Well, okay. This is my perspective, but I feel like, and I'm not trying to evade it, but it does depend a little bit on the context. So let's say that you're sitting around a campfire, and I say, I'm going to tell you the story of when I met this giant bear last week, this 8-foot bear. And so I tell you this story, and it's entertaining or whatever. It's a tall tale, whatever. I get done, and someone says, well, did Steve tell you the truth? You probably say, no, no, that wasn't the truth. But then if they said, did he lie? You probably would say, well, no, he wasn't lying. I mean, it was to entertain us, right? So
Yeah.
your expectations, because of the context, are in a certain place. But if I were to, like, say, get up in court and say, Your Honor, here's what happened last week with the 8-foot bear, and I tell the same story, you're like, what is going on? That's not even true. And so where you are and how you actually tell a story impacts the amount of truth people expect to be in the story. And
Sure.
so I feel like one of the biggest goals we have is to match the expectations that people have with how much truth we have in stories. So every once in a while, you'll hear a story about someone who, a newspaper author or someone who writes a personal story, and then people find out they just made it up. You just made it up. Well, people feel betrayed because their expectations were that it's close to the truth. So, over
Yeah.
the years, I've written a lot of true stories. Sometimes I've interviewed people and told their story, but I'll say something like this is based on true events or whatever. So the people know, oh, maybe he's making up some of the dialogue and things like that. And I just don't want people to ever get to the place where they're like, did that really happen like that? I'm like, for the
But
most part, it did, but.
this does explain politicians.
Yeah. I still remember years ago, there was this night where actually we were in bed. My wife and I are in bed, and all of a sudden we hear this crash of glass. And my wife said she could see out the window. She said, there's someone crawling in the kitchen window. Someone had broken the glass, was climbing in the window. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't have a gun or, under my pillow or something. I didn't have a baseball bat. So I was like, crap, I got to do something. Someone's crawling in our window. We got little kids in our house. So like I started down the hallway, and one of my daughters had a Barbie doll that she'd left there. And I was like, I'm using it, man. So I pick up this naked Barbie doll and I'm coming down the hallway with the naked Barbie doll. And I'm saying, I'm armed. I'm armed. Get out of the house or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? So that was just like an event. And so one day I was telling that, and my wife's like, there was no Barbie doll. I'm like, what are you talking about? I picked up the Barbie doll. She's like, no, you didn't have a Barbie doll. You just walked down there in your underwear. Like, I remember a Barbie doll. Like, I remember threatening him with a naked Barbie doll. So was there a Barbie doll or not? I can't honestly tell you because I remember it being there, but maybe it's
Yeah.
from embellishing the story in my mind, my imagination is inserted a Barbie doll. But it's a better story with a Barbie doll, though. I'll just say that.
I would agree. I would agree.
It's a
Without a
great
doubt.
story with the Barbie.
My brother, there was a mouse in their house. It's kind of the same thing where he woke up and he's in his tidy whities. And the only thing he could find was a plastic trident. One of the kids, he's chasing the mouse around the house, trying to kill it with a plastic trident in his tidy whities. Anyway, but back to this. So I do need to know, was someone actually crawling in your window and did they run?
Someone was crawling in our window. They actually were. And they ran out and they stole an iron and a bottle of dishwashing liquid. I think because those were the closest things to the window, and they're just like, I'm getting out of here. But yeah, certainly we went in there and yeah, someone had broken in to our house and
Wow, that's scary.
yeah, bigger context was, yeah, it was just, I don't know who it was. We never found out who it was, but I have a suspicion that I might know. There was this one homeless person I'd been helping out earlier in the day, and he knew where we lived. I just feel like it might have been that person, but who knows? I don't know. What that person like was kind of came up, I don't know, panhandling or whatever. And was like, yeah, I'm trying to go to South Carolina to visit my son or my daughter. And I was like, well, he's like, can I have some money? I was like, well, no, I'm not gonna give you money to go to South Carolina, but I said, I'll buy you a bus ticket. He's like,
Mhm.
what? Like, I'm not gonna give you money, but I'll buy you a bus ticket. So we go to the bus station, and I don't know, it wasn't that expensive because I'm in Tennessee, right? So it wasn't that bad to get a bus
Yeah.
ticket to go to South Carolina. So I bought it for him and I waited as he walked on the bus, but I always wondered if he got
Mhm.
back off the bus
Oh,
because
maybe.
he knew where we were living and he's like, oh, they must have money because he paid. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was so it's interesting. One story kind of connects with another and connects with another and you get broader and broader context. But
So true, the human experience.
yeah.
So today, like right now, if you were just starting out as an author, what would you tell new authors, or what would you do yourself if you were brand new?
Okay, so one thing I would say is discard your outline. Write where the story leads you and not where, don't try to lead the story where it should go. Try to
Mhm.
follow where the character's pursuit is more important than the plot. Plot will be there after you've shown us where the characters need to go. So anyway, I know it's controversial, but I would say one of the big things is actually follow the character's pursuit and desire instead of imposing onto it where you want them to go. And second thing I would say is never fall in love with your first draft. So many people today will write something real fast, right? And they'll be like, I'm going to publish this, or I'm going to send it out to an agent, editor, publish it online. Odds are it probably needs work. And so you
Mhm.
both know this. It's like, from the first draft to actually publishable, it's a long journey sometimes. So I'd say that. So never fall in love with your first draft. But the third
Yeah.
thing I would say is, um, I don't know how to say it's like um, write something that terrifies people because of how true it is.
Mm.
Not necessarily true is this that it happened, you know what I mean? Like you're not a reporter necessarily, but true about human nature, true about life. Like if you can write stories where it resonates when people read it, they're like, that is true. I feel like every story worth telling will offend someone. That doesn't mean we're trying to tell stories just to offend people. It's
Right.
not the point, but like great stories, you read a great story and it's like it impacts you because it tells the truth about human nature. It's not just pandering, it's not just trying to impress someone or whatever, just sell books. But you read it and it has an impression. So try to be honest so honest with your stories that it sears us with the truth. And then that's my advice right there.
I love it. That's
I
great.
love that. That's fantastic. I agree 100% about
Yeah.
that, about plot and story, because they are different. I
Yeah.
think a premise is like a concept.
Yeah.
A plot is like the skeleton, but a
Hmm.
story is the whole being.
Hmm.
And you could give 100 writers the same premise, they would come up with 100 different stories. You
Mhm.
could give them the same plot
Hmm.
and they would come up with 100 different stories, because the meat is where the story is, the bones are where the structure is, and they're
Mhm.
different. They're different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm like you. I don't outline. I just start a story. I put somebody in a situation, start see what happens, see where it goes. And the plot just kind of happens, you know. But that's where rewriting comes in too, because the first draft can be messy.
It
But
can
that's
be messy.
okay. The next couple of run throughs, you fix all that.
Yeah, it's fluid. So, yeah.
it's funny. I've since getting to know you better, Stephen, and hearing you teach, and I've really thought about this, whether, and people call them pantsers when you just write it by the seat of your pants. And I've always called myself an outliner. But the truth is, when I'm outlining,
Yeah.
I'm a pantser.
Yeah.
So, and what happens is I end up outlining, and my outlines are so extensive, they're a first draft.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah. I
And
just want
pantsers are
people
also outliners in their head.
Yeah,
You're always thinking several scenes ahead. Something
right.
comes up and you're thinking, yeah, but then this, oh yeah, I like where that's going. And then you start writing, and then you get there and say, oh well, oh yeah, and then oh yeah, let's go in that direction. So you're really outlining a little. You're just not outlining the whole project.
Right. Do you
like
do
for
that
me,
at all, Stephen?
uh I'm not so good at that actually. When I'm writing a scene, I will do exactly what Doug just said. And so I think, where would this go? Where could this go? Where might, but then what happens is, if I think, oh, I think I know where this is going to go, I usually discard that idea because I feel like it's probably too predictable.
Right.
So that's that, you know what I mean? So then I'm like, oh, no, people are going to guess that. I can't do that. I need something to be a little different. But the biggest thing for me is really, I want people to be receptive to the story, whatever they call themselves, plot or pants or whatever like this, but be receptive to the story. And I remember when I was going to start writing back in, well, I guess this was 2001, I guess. Anyway, I went to this conference because I wanted to become a writer, novelist. And this guy got up in front and he said, now the first thing you have to do is write a 40-page single space outline of your story. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I can't do
Right.
that. I don't, how can I outline what doesn't exist? It doesn't make any sense to me. And so, like, for 4 years, I didn't write. Like, I
Oh,
would toy
wow.
with the idea, but I never wrote my stories. Like, I wrote some nonfiction books and stuff, but finally I was like, I'm just gonna try this. Like, I have this idea. I want to see where it goes. And so yeah, it set me back probably 4 years of writing before I finally just set that aside and said, look, maybe that's what you do, that's fine, but look, I'm just going to tell the story, and then that's what really set me free to be actually able to write.
It's such a shame that stopped you for 4 years, that confounded
It's
you.
so intimidating, and I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, how can I outline? The story's not even there yet. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
yeah, it's always fun debate, though. I get in debate with other authors who are outliners, and I always enjoy it because
It is,
I
it's
get to
very
be I get to
controversial.
be the little
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
poking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you look at your life now, and you think about who you were as that high school senior or what have you, um, do you think that high school senior could imagine your life as it is today?
No,
No.
no, I even if in 2001 or 2005, let's say that you in 2005 you said, Steve, will you ever write a novel? I'd be like, well, I think I've got this one idea, that I maybe want to write this novel and finish it in 2006, whatever it was. But if you said, by the time, 2000, whatever it is, 2014 or 2024 rolls around, you'll have written 55 books, 18 novels, and told stories 2,000 times around the world. I said, that's insane. What are you talking about? That's crazy. I could never write 55 books in my life. So no, I would have never even, never even dreamed that maybe I would have dreamed that maybe I could write a book one day or something, but no, I'm just super thankful to be able to obviously do this. Um, and then, I didn't even start writing novels until, I mean, I was in my 30s. So a lot of people that I meet today are a lot younger than that. And
Yeah.
right. And so it's an amazing time, to be a writer.
Mhm.
We have so many tools at our disposal. But one of the biggest keys is really, what Doug was saying earlier, and that is you need to tell a great story with the flesh and the bones. It's not just about throwing out another sort of cookie cutter story. It's telling something that really is uniquely you. So anyway, so that's yeah, that's I'd say one
Well,
of the things.
speaking of novels, tell us about this.
Yes.
Hey, I know that book, Fatal Domain. Yeah, no, that's second book in this series. Broker of Lies came out first last year. Fatal Domain is a April release. It's about Travis Brock and his team. They're trying to track down and stop some domestic terrorists. So it's my first series that's an espionage series. And anyway, the main character is kind of interesting, unique because he's a redactor for the Pentagon. I'm wearing my Pentagon hat here, but so basically what he does is he works in the basement of the Pentagon, and when a Freedom of Information Act request comes in, he's the guy that studies, he's basically got a photographic memory. So he's the guy that studies all of our top secret programs and decides, well, this can be released to the public, but this maybe can't be. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? Like I've never read a series about a redactor before. There's lots of CIA espionage stories out there, FBI thrillers and all that. But I was like, I've never seen anything like this. So he ends up partnering with a Homeland operative, and the two of them kind of become a little bit of a love interest, and they end up having to work together. And so she's got all the kind of kick-ass skills, and he's got kind of all the intellectual, but he's on his way to becoming more of an action hero. By the end of this book, you'll say, okay, I think I know where this guy's going to go. So super interesting character, and is a lot of fun to just let him loose in this book and see what happens.
Did you go to the Pentagon and do some research?
Yeah, I actually toured it twice, and so I try to include like inside information that a lot of people may not know. Like in one of the books, actually I mentioned, if you're in the Pentagon, you look out a window, everything is yellow tinged because all the windows of the Pentagon have been specially treated to keep out chemical attacks, biological attacks, different things. So like,
Mhm.
just like having details like that, like when you're in the Pentagon, you look out, it's like everything is yellow tinged. Um, a lot of people who've never been there would be like, didn't know that. And even people who are there, I guess, yeah, I guess that's true. Like I hadn't even thought of that. So I really try to bring as much authenticity to, obviously it's fictional, the story isn't so on,
Mhm.
but to try to bring as much believability and accuracy to the story in, as a way of respecting the work that the Department of Defense does. So yeah, it was super interesting. Got to visit a number of different sort of military installations over the years and do some research. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Cool.
it's amazing.
So there's one thing that you have said about storytelling that I find really intriguing and I'd like to hear more about is you say, people often say, don't write yourself into a corner. And you say, no, 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 write yourself into that corner.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
I feel like one of the most important things we can do is to write ourselves into a corner. And you might say, well, that seems counterintuitive. Like, what should I do then? Well, if you don't do it, your story is going to end up probably being pretty predictable because people are going to read and be like, okay, I think I know where this is going. But if they get to a spot and they're like, I literally have no idea how these characters are going to get out of this situation. How are the love interests going to get together? Or how are they going to save these people or stop the terrorists or whatever? The best stories that you've seen in movies, that you've read in books, always have a moment where all seems lost, where you're like, I do not know how they're going to get out of this. And then hopefully there's a pivot where things occur that are surprising, obviously, but also satisfying, and where it's unexpected yet inevitable. And so yeah, in my seminars, I always try to teach people how to write yourself out of the corner once you've gotten into it. And a lot of it is being receptive to the story. A lot of it is to understand your characters and how they might naturally react. to being in that situation. And sometimes you do have to sort of go back and say, you know what, I need to foreshadow something a little bit earlier here of how they're going to get out of this corner. And that's fine. You go back, you foreshadow, and then they get out and away. We're like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different way of thinking, but based on the contingent nature of fiction, basically what I mean is like everything in a story is caused by what precedes it. Okay, so everything is caused, just random things don't happen, or else we feel like it's coincidence or it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So because of this, we have this kind of link of cause to effect all the way through a story. But if you just follow that, it'll be predictable. Oh, I know exactly where this is going because of this and this. So the key to telling great stories is to keep in mind the contingent nature, the causal effect of stories, but also to have surprises, to have those twists, those pivots, so that it honors the believability of the story, but also taps into the surprise that we all want. When we read a story, we're all thinking, we don't say it, but we're thinking, how will I be surprised?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's there. I mean, we want that.
Yep.
And I don't think it's something that a lot of writing instructors always teach, how to surprise your readers. I mean, shock them maybe. Yes, that's fine. But like we come to the book wanting to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
In
It's
a
going
way,
to
Yeah,
make me
roller
think
coaster
and
ride.
make me worry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Make me
Yeah,
think and
yeah.
make me worry. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
I'm always
Well,
looking for
Stephen's
that.
going to be teaching in the Outliers online ongoing writing university. Actually, in March, you're doing a class on heroes and villains, which I
Yeah.
can't wait. And then you're doing one in May on creating three-dimensional characters, and that's going to incorporate your cube concept. I read that book last month, and yeah, unbelievable. I mean, great thought processes, a great way of looking at things, and you do step, no pun intended, outside the box.
Yeah.
And so, give us a little tease about that. What's the cube about?
Yeah,
Yes.
for years I really had been teaching writing. I wrote a couple books on writing, story trope structure, and troubleshooting your novel. And for decades I was teaching writing, and I was like, I think I know what a story is. Then I was working on this new book, The Art of the Tale, and I was like, I actually think I missed something. I actually think that what I thought a story was all about was incomplete. There's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but like, so basically, ever since Aristotle wrote Poetics, people have been looking at story through a temporal lens, beginning, middle, end, first act, second act, third act, inciting incident, rising action, denouement. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I don't love that as a paradigm because it gives people the impression that a story is about a series of events instead of a collision of desires. So at the core of a story is really desire. It isn't just occurrences or activity. And so I started to ask myself, what are the essential aspects to a story, no matter how many acts it might have, 3, 4, 7, I don't care. But what are the actual essential elements to a story? And I came up with this idea of the story cube, that every great story has 6 elements to it. And so I'll be teaching, in depth about that. I know we're doing a conference on the story cube. And so I'll be talking through the 6 essential aspects to all great stories. 4 of them occur in every story, but there's 2 additional elements that occur in all great stories. So we'll dive deeply into that. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the thoughts on that.
Very excited about that.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Outstanding.
Well, Stephen, it has been great talking with you. We have to have you back on because you are a great interview. It's a lot of fun. Again, I
Always.
want to ask our viewers to please click the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of our interviews and all the great times we're having here on the YouTube channel. And Stephen, thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Yes,
Awesome.
thanks.
Sounds great. Thanks all.
All right. Until next time.